Now we'll see the working of pulse amplitude modulation. So in this pulse amplitude modulation experiment, we need to apply a modulating signal of amplitude 5 volt peak to peak and with a DC shift of 3 volt. So let us see how to introduce the DC phase shift. DC shift. So let us have a look at. This is the input modulating signal that we are supposed to apply. You can see this is a waveform without any DC shift. You can see the positive half area is equal to negative half area with the input amplitude as 5 volt peak to peak. This is without any DC insertion. So DC voltage here is 0. But we need to apply voltage where the DC phase shift is 3 volt. As you can see here. So from this new 0 to this older 0, there is a 3 volt difference. Whenever I am introducing a DC shift of 3 volt, even the negative peak is above the reference value of 0 by 0.5 volts. So this is what we are supposed to apply. If I am having this type of waveform, this happens to be a input signal with a DC shift of 3 volt. So we need to apply the same type of waveform on the let us first identify where the reference is. The reference happens to be over here. Now you can see, since I switched off this DC offset, so this happens to be a pure AC signal without any DC shift. Now in order to see the DC shift, first we should press this in DC. Now let me just switch on. Now I should have this negative peak to be above this 0 reference. So as we saw in the waveform on the let me just introduce the DC phase shift. Whenever I just switch this on, you can see first it will go to negative and then to 0 and then to plus. Whenever I just switch on, you can see the entire waveform is going down. The entire waveform went down because the introduced DC shift is negative. Now I don't want this type of waveform. I need to ensure that the negative peak is also above the reference. I'm introducing the DC phase shift now. You can see the waveform is moving up. Ensure that even the negative peak, so this is negative peak, is above 0. So we are having this negative peak also coming above 0. Now this is a proper waveform where I am having even the negative peak is above 0. I introduce more than 3 volt DC shift, that's why it has went. This will be fine. So this is there in 1 volt. This is approximately 0.5. Now the introduced DC shift is 3 volts. Now we can see the output of your PAM signal. So for that we need to apply square wave as the carrier signal. You can see we are already through with the PAM signal. So let us again compare with the input carrier signal. Put this down here. I can just use this hold off. Now we need to know during what cycle your signal is the transistor is turning on, turning off. So for that we can use this DSO. I can see now we are having both square wave as well as the PAM signal. Let me just store this. Now I can verify clearly during the positive half cycle of the carrier signal, the transistor is on. You can see this portion of the output waveform is exactly the shape of the modulating signal. You can make out exactly in this waveform when the carrier signal is positive half, you can see this shape. So this is the sample of your modulating signal. So likewise you can see for the entire positive half it is sampling the modulating signal. So whenever it is negative half cycle, you can see the transistor is off, that's why the output voltage is 0. So whatever I'm getting is a PAM signal where the pulse amplitude is varied according to the amplitude of the modulating signal. So what happens if I don't apply a DC shift of required 3 volt or not? So let me just introduce a DC phase shift slightly less than 3 volt. I have reduced this. Let us see what happens on my output waveform. You can see this is the output waveform, the blue one. Let me slightly introduce I can see I'm having the output waveform both in the positive half cycle as in the negative half cycle. Now the pulses are not unipolar, so it has got both positive pulses as well as negative pulses. Now there is no problem in demodulation. Of course there is no problem in modulation also, but whatever we are getting is a pulse amplitude modulation, which is a bipolar waveform. If I introduce negative phase shift, you can see now all the pulses have become negative. Now this is also a unipolar, but the pulses are now negative. So at the demodulation I can have either bipolar pulses, unipolar, or unipolar both in positive direction and negative direction. Since in your manual it is given that you want to have a unipolar pulses with positive pulses, so let us introduce a DC shift of positive value so that you can have all pulses of positive amplitude. Now this is what we want to have. Okay, this is what is the PAM signal. So for the positive half cycle it samples the modulating signal, the negative half cycle transits is off, so the output voltage is 0. That's what you can clearly see from this waveform. You can just compare. Always it is better to compare the carrier signal with the modulated waveform so that you can clearly verify during the on period it is sampling, during the off period it is off. Now just do the demodulation. Now whenever we are seeing the PAM signal, please don't connect the filter circuit. Now this is the waveform without connecting the filter. You can see now the filter is open. I have not connected this filter. Now what is this filter? Filter is a very low order, first order low pass filter comprising just R and C. Now we'll see whether can we able to get the demodulation. Now is it satisfying the Nyquist criterion? Because the number of samples per cycle is more than 1. It is certainly satisfying the Nyquist criterion. Now let us see whether we are getting the demodulation or not. So to just verify whether we are getting demodulation or not, we'll just compare that with the, okay, as you can see here, okay, we are still having, this is my modulating signal, this is the demodulated waveform, this is from the PAM signal. You can see there is a lot of ripple is there. So this ripple is there because the carrier frequency, I'm not having too many samples per cycle, so I can reduce the amplitude of the ripple in two ways. So one way of reducing the amplitude of the ripple is you go for high order filter. So the order of the filter has to be increased. What happens now is, now my modulating signal is at a frequency around 600 Hertz. So this is my 600 Hertz, the modulating signal. The carrier frequency happens to be, we can measure the carrier frequency. The carrier frequency which is coming to be 3.9 kilohertz, which you can measure it from DSO. So this is 600 kilohertz FM, FC is 3.9 kilohertz. So it is certainly satisfying. FC is equal to greater than 2 FM. So my Nyquist criteria is satisfied. That means I'm supposed to get the proper demodulation ideally. Now what is the filter we are having? We are having a low order filter with a roll off of just 20 dB per decade. So we have chosen the cutoff frequency of the filter as around 1 kilohertz, which is slightly more than the modulating frequency. This is 1 kilohertz. Now since we are having the carrier frequency at 3.9 kilohertz, 3.9 kilohertz comes somewhere here. This is now 3.9 kilohertz. You cannot block this 3.9 kilohertz signal with a simple first order filter. So if you can increase the order of the filter, the roll off will become more and more. It will become steeper and steeper, so that I can get a reduced output voltage. So one way of reducing the ripple amplitude, you can go for a high order filter, but it becomes a bit complicated at the demodulation to have a high order filter. We know how difficult it is to just do the second order filter itself. Now second thing is, what happens if I increase the carrier frequency? Now as we know that 1 kilohertz is the cutoff frequency of the low pass filter. If I keep the carrier frequency too far away from 1 kilohertz, you keep your FC as around something like 25k or 50k. Now what we are having now the ripple frequency at this rate of 25 kilohertz and 50 kilohertz, which happens to be in the stop band of this low pass filter. So let me just simply increase the carrier frequency, keeping the order of the filter as just only first order. Let me increase the carrier frequency from 3.9 kilohertz to, I made it from 40 kilohertz. So this is not yet captured. Let me see now what happens. You can see, of course, this is the carrier signal. You can see now there is a lot of improvement in the demodulated waveform. Now why there is a lot of improvement? Now the ripple amplitude has been reduced. Why the ripple amplitude is reduced? Because whatever ripple frequency I had, which is at the order of 40 kilohertz, which is, I kept it around, so this is the carrier frequency which is around 40 kilohertz. Now this 40 kilohertz happens to be in the stop band of the low pass filter. Now whereas in the earlier case of 3.9 kilohertz, which was there close to the pass band, so that's why it was also coming through the low pass filter. Now I intentionally made the carrier frequency to be fall in the stop band of the filter. Now I'm having very small ripple amplitude. You can see the ripple amplitude is very less. Even you can see there is a charging discharging is still there. This is the charging discharging of your capacitor, but you can see its amplitude is reduced. You can see now the basic concept of charging discharging is still there for your capacitor, but its amplitude is reduced because we have increased the carrier frequency. Suppose if you can see how does that will affect your, suppose if I reduce the carrier frequency, I made it from 40 kilohertz, if I just make it 10 kilohertz. Now I have reduced the, now I can just make out here. Now I have reduced the carrier frequency from 40k to 11 kilohertz. You can see the ripple amplitude is slightly increased. You can see now. So this is the charging discharging of the capacitor. Now what happens if I reduce the carrier frequency? I'll be allowing sufficient time for my capacitor to charge and discharge. That's why the ripple amplitude is large. So that's why it is always necessary that for the demodulation you keep the carrier frequency bit high. Suppose if I keep the carrier frequency again back to 40 kilohertz, you can see the ripple amplitude is very much reduced. It is still charging discharging is there. Since I am having, when I increase the carrier frequency, the timing between the two pulses will be very less. So you will not be giving sufficient time for the capacitor charge and discharge. That's why it is not discharging to a very great extent. That's why the amplitude of the ripple is reduced. But for seeing the modulation, to verify, okay, here also we can just make out using DSO whether during the positive half cycle it is charging or discharging. You can just have a look at your just remove the filter. Now this is what happens. You can see the output waveform is not a flat one. It is because you have connected your filter circuit. Let me remove the filter and just make the measurements. Now also you can see now it is with the carrier frequency is around 21 kilohertz. Still it is valid. You can see the during the positive half cycle of the carrier it is turning on, during negative half cycle it is off. You can see the pulse amplitude is varied according to the modulating signal. Now here also you can clearly see the PAM signal, but it is more clear with lower frequency. So without PAM you cannot get the demodulation. So using DSO, even with very high carrier frequency, you can still see the demodulation. You can store it and you can expand and see it during positive cycle it is so and so. But seeing it on the ordinary CRO, it may be a bit difficult to just make out the PAM. Of course you cannot make out, okay, during the positive cycle it is turning on or turning off, because it is a bit difficult over here to just make it still and so on. So of course even though it is visible here, now it may be, of course you can make out here during positive half cycle it is on, during negative half cycle it is 0 voltage. If I go for higher frequency, it may be difficult on this ordinary oscilloscope, whereas in case of the storage oscilloscope you can clearly make out whatever the carrier frequency of your signal. So Of course, during the demodulation we have to have the carrier frequency bit high so that we can reduce the ripple amplitude. Of course, now you can verify whether the demodulated waveform is equal to your modulating waveform or not. You can just verify the two waveforms. Okay, other than slight phase shift in the output and input waveform. Okay, so these are the input and output waveforms which are having the same shape as that of. Okay, there is a slight phase shift between both of them because of the RC circuit that is there in your filter. So this is the demodulated waveform, this is the modulating waveform. You can see in the demodulated version you are having charging, discharging. So this is your modulating waveform. So here we can prove that the PAM modulation demodulation yields the same modulating signal before it is modulated.